Well, welcome everybody to April's Happy Hour. I'm so excited that we have Paisley Ashland with us tonight. Paisley, as an undergrad, did research on SCI Cashmere, and if you have not caught her research video, you can. We'll make sure to put a link in the description of our video that's posted tonight. And Paisley also owns Henz and Houndz and Henz. It's the
Henz and Houndz, yeah.
Henz and Houndz Farm. So I will hand it over to Paisley. Thank you for being here.
Here, I made a few slides of PowerPoint. So let's see if I can share that. It's much easier to explain things with pictures. Okay. Can everyone see that?
Yes, I'm seeing it.
Yes.
Okay. I raise Antony goats, but I also raise Cashmere goats. So I kind of do both. I also, of course, I've been a livestock conservancy member for a really long time. I have like ducks, geese, etc. But I really started with the San Clementes as some of my first goats, and I love them. And I have been really excited at using them as cashmere goats and breeding them with my cashmere goats to get new genetics, because the cashmere goat breed, the American Cashmere Goat Association, that is an open breed. So their registry, it's an open registry. So you can actually breed different breeds into it, and that is still considered acceptable cashmere goat as long as it meets all the requirements, which is very unique. So when you're thinking about fiber or cashmere, you really have to decide like what you're going in for. So like, think of the questions of what you want to know. Do you want to know, is the fiber that your goat producing cashmere? If you want to sell it, is it going to be another item that you sell? And can you market it as cashmere? Or do you have to market it as something else? Do you just want to keep the fiber for yourself because you don't have a lot of goats and you want to just know if it's any good or not? And then we'll talk a little bit about the possibility of getting your SCI goats also registered by the Cashmere Goat Association. So a little bit of background. So goats produce two types of hair, guard hairs and undercoat. And that undercoat can be cashmere, but it is not guaranteed to be cashmere. So every goat makes a little bit of undercoat especially when it gets cold, but that might not be cashmere. It might be slightly thicker, not quite what makes it cashmere. And so to be considered cashmere, it has to fit into specific guidelines. But if it's not, if your fiber, if you test it and you're outside the ranges for cashmere, you can still sell it under the term wool or goat fiber or pretty much anything else. It just can't be called cashmere. And it doesn't make it any less great, you know? They actually, with the Cashmere Goat Association, they don't count the feel when you touch it. They've determined that you can't tell based on touching it if it's any good fiber or not, because you could be touching something that's not cashmere at all and it still feels great, because the difference in size of the microns is so it'll still be great fiber either way. So to be cashmere, it has to have an average micron of under 19. And the thing about microns is the goats make thicker hair as they get older. So the first year, like the first winter, that will be the thinnest fiber they ever have, worse over time. And that means that like you could have a goat that was making cashmere when they were 1 and 2, but by the time that they're 8 or 9, it's not. During my undergraduate research, I looked into that, and SCIs, I had a limited data pool, but it seemed fast, right? They jump up And I had a 12-year-old goat that was still making cashmere, which is really great. And then it also has to be uniform, so they want it to not just be thin, consistent. Style and crimp is kind of like the waviness to it, and that helps it lock together when you're spinning it, so that has to be greater than 45 degrees. And then the Cashmere Goat Association includes length as a requirement, so that's not a international requirement. So if you match all the other requirements and you don't match length, that's fine. You can still sell it as cashmere. The CGA just decided that length of 1.25 inches was important, so much easier on the machine and for spinners. So they found that that was like a really valuable thing to them, that it be long too. Unfortunately, length and are kind of against each other genetically. So typically, if you have like 4-inch long cashmere, it's going to be not cashmere anymore. It's going to be too thick. And if you have really thin stuff, like really short 1-inch cashmere, it's probably going to be really thin, but it's kind of a trade-off that you have to consider when genetically. So there's different ways. If the fiber your goat is making is cashmere, you can send it to a judge, a CGA judge. They'll judge anything you send them. And you can find that information on their website. They formerly used Texas A&M, and I used the Montana Wool Lab. I used it because it's much, much cheaper. It's about like $5 to $6 for everything versus Texas A&M costs $15. When you're doing, if you're doing 5 goats at $5, that's fine, but it gets kind of expensive at $15 a piece. So this is an example of like the information that you would get. So you'll get the average microns in how many there are. And so this is P.T. Barnum. This is actually the best goat I ever had for fiber, and he was a 100% San Clemente Island goat. So 13.5 microns is insanely thin, and this wasn't his first year. He was a couple of years old when I measured this, so that's absolutely fantastic. And when you're looking at the graph that you get, you want it to be steep like that, to be like a flat mound. You want it to be really jagged and sharp, and hopefully at the low end. And then standard deviation is also important. You want that to be lower, but it's kind of the same as your C. And then this is the crimp that I was talking about. And the CF is how many fibers are under a specific amount. I think it's like 50 microns or something. So it should be 100% all the time, because hopefully your fiber will all be like that. So sometimes you get extra information, which is interesting, but not necessarily super valuable. They often, they will run it with the guard hair, and then they'll pick the guard hair out and run it again. The initial run with the guard hair it averages everything out. So it averages the really good cashmere with the really thick and not wavy things. So this is that same goat, but with the guard hair, and you can see it says like average microns 31. That's not a good representation of what it actually is. And it's guard hair either, because it's an average of these two very different fibers that they make. Fiber length is sometimes measured.
I'll stay in communication with Paisley. I know her Wi-Fi is really poopy.
Hopefully we'll give her a minute to log back on. This is so interesting. Well, while we're waiting for Paisley, who's interested in who's collecting fiber out of curiosity? We are.
Yeah, I should be collecting fiber, and I keep putting it off because I'm going to do health checks at the same time. But I've done, last year there was a grant through, it was Texas A&M and the Cashmere Association to do free testing. So I just did my entire herd. And I gave all of the test results to Paisley. And some other women were supposed to help me read it because this is great because this is already like helping me understand how to read all of those tests. And I had been talking with the people from the Cashmere Association, and they want to present on here at some point down the line. But anyways, Paisley's back too. So, but yeah, this is exciting. I'm learning so much.
Definitely. All right. We'll let Paisley get back on. Are you there, Paisley? We all know how this internet works.
Yep.
In rural areas.
I spent 2 months with my camera not working, and I just got it working today. So.
Woohoo! So, I was going to say Jana's chatting. Or are those your fiber tests, Jana?
The results, because I think I did the same thing that Erin did last year, but I didn't know how to read it. So I'm finding this information really useful, and I went ahead and I posted my results in the chat. Just if anyone's curious.
Let's see.
Jana, have you been back in touch with the Cashmere Association?
I have not.
Okay. They were really welcoming. Like, I sent them all of my test results again, and I had asked for help reading them, and they haven't gotten back to me, but people seem willing to want to help anyways. I just need a little more follow through, but yeah.
Good. No, life kind of got a little busy, and I meant to, and I never did.
Yeah. And then, Paisley got booped off again. I am particularly excited. I had a friend read some of the Cashmere results, and she's a fiber person, not particularly goats, but she was letting me know that this can be mixed with other fibers to create, whatever that might be. And she said that might be a really good option for us to like mix it with other existing fibers to create a whatever yarn or whatever.
We're working with Jacob sheep wool and adding it to our fiber. I didn't test it, so I don't know if it's cashmere or just wool, but yeah. And we dye them different colors, so that way you can sort of see the how much SCI is there versus other.
Yeah.
Do you do that yourself, Sarah?
Dye it or make
you dye it and spin it?
I dye and spin myself. Yep.
That's cool. Yeah, because we're not doing anything with our Navajo churro sheep just because, well, I don't have time to do something like that, but the local wool mills are so expensive. It doesn't pencil out to make yarn or batting or anything.
No, Rachel Hester, and she is in our Facebook group. She is a sheep guru, and if you follow her, she does a lot of sort of DIYs on how to wash, fleece, and get it ready for spinning or felting or whatever you want to do. So
interesting.
Yeah, it's really great, and we're hoping, we haven't, but and we might with some sheep fiber or with some wool. SCIs don't produce enough, but locally, fiber CSAs have popped up, so that you've taken a CSA member and they get a fleece, and a lot of times farmers will couple that with like a natural dyeing garden. So then you get a fleece, and then you get like a basket of woad or indigo or whatever you're growing that you can then dye the wool yourself. But it's a great way
that's
to
cool.
It's a great way to know that your fleeces are pre-sold and that they're going. So, but yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, I would think that would be popular with Navajo churro. I have a special affinity for Navajo churro. My favorite book growing up was about a Navajo churro sheep and her shepherdess, and how she, took care of all the wool to make these rugs.
Oh, really? I've never even heard of that book. Do you remember the name?
My mom is going to kill me for not thinking about it. We still have it on the shelf at home. It's Nadine of Window Rock. I'll look it up. It's pretty. I know it's still in print because we just got it like a few years ago for my niece. So.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm guessing Paisley is having issues.
I am back, and hopefully it will
you
be
are? Okay.
good.
Oh, sorry. We were just chatting until you were ready.
No, it was having serious issues. Where was I when I cut out?
The extra, you had just finished talking about how they'll test guard hair and the cashmere, the undercoat together, and then it averages out.
Okay, yeah. So I think the next thing I was going to mention was the fiber length can be measured by the machine, but it's wrong. So even when the Cashmere Goat Association used Texas A&M, they did not consider the length that Texas A&M got right. It was considered wrong. So they actually let you measure it yourself and send that in. But if you're interested, you'd have to do it yourself because the machine just can't read it for some reason. So this picture didn't load, but it's something called a growth graph. And here we go. And it looks something like this. And it's basically showing how the cashmere grew throughout the year. So you want it to be relatively flat, right? It grew at very few microns the entire year. But sometimes if it's kind of like there's like a dip or something like that, or there's a spike, it could be something happened to your goat. Like your goat got sick and it wasn't spending energy making fiber, or it got really, it was during breeding season and it put more energy towards that than it did towards its cashmere. Unfortunately, the machine can't tell which side of the hair was attached to the goat and which side of the hair was sticking out. So it could be like this was when it first started growing it and that's at the end, or it could be the complete opposite. So it's just kind of like fun to look at. And if you're like, you see a spike or something, you could be like, oh yeah, that was when this happened. But that's just kind of like a fun to have. So like I said, the CTA is an open breed registry. So as long as your goat fits all the requirements they've judged 50% based on fiber and 50% based on conformation. So their goals for conformation are obviously very different than San Clemente's. And cashmere goats, the American cashmere goat, is supposed to be more of a meat breed. And while SCIs are multi-purpose, they're more shaped like deer than they are shaped like a boar goat. And so you wouldn't win any shows with them. I haven't registered any of my pure SCIs with the Cashmere Goat Association, but I have done my crosses. And one of the things that would keep you out if you were interested at all in joining the Cashmere Goat Association is that the Cashmere Goat Association is really passionate about the nipple count, so they only let you have 2. And I mean, I have SCI goats that have like 6, and that is an immediate disqualification. But luckily, it's a relatively like dominant trait. So with my crosses that I've done, I did a male San Clemente goat to female cashmere goats. They have all turned out with 2 nipples, and one of them just won grand champion at the CGA show last year. So the genetics are definitely there. They definitely have, SCI goats definitely have great potential for Cashmere. And they are just, it's a really interesting thing that they are multi-purpose in all of those ways. So, does anyone have any questions?
I definitely do. I know Christy does. Christy, did you want to go first?
Well, I had questions on Aaron's behalf since he couldn't be here. He wanted to ask, and I hope I'm getting these questions right, but he wanted to ask about collection of cashmere. That's all he said. I don't know if he wants to know exactly how to collect it or if there's anything to be worried about. And the second part of his question was storing it for shipping later. What's the best way to store it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we, for collection, there are two ways. There's brushing it out. We just use a dog comb rake that we bought at Petco. We found that that's the best thing. And some people do like shear them like sheep. I only know one place that does that for cashmeres, and they're more of like an industrial place. I definitely recommend brushing it out. It makes it much cheaper when you're doing the processing to take out much fewer guard hairs than every single guard hair that the goat made, and then your goat has to regrow all that hair. So it's literally just a dog rake. Once it starts to like come out of the goat, it's called blooming. It kind of just starts sticking out. They look all shaggy. You can just rake it out. We put ours in Ziploc bags with the name of the goat and the year. So that way we can keep track of who it is. We don't, we keep our SCI cashmere and our real cashmere goat separate because we want to make, at some point, send it to a mill and make something that's like 100% SCI fiber, because that would be really great. But yeah, so we just store it in a plastic bag in a Rubbermaid so no mice go and eat it.
Now, is there, like I brushed my goat the other day, I'm not collecting, I just have one little bitty doe, and she wasn't shedding that much hair, but I brushed her out, and it's, you know, I got a handful, and it's disgustingly dirty looking. Is there, I mean, is that just normal, acceptable?
I'm so sorry, you cut out. Can you try saying it again?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was just asking, I brushed my goat out the other day, my SCI, just to get the hair off of her, and it's dirty, you know, it had trash and dirt and stuff in it. Is that a problem?
Yeah, so it's not, it's always going to be a little dirty. And that's kind of like part of the processing. So we haven't gotten our fiber processed yet because you have to have a pound of it to send it to one of the small mills that processes cashmere. And that's quite a lot because cashmere is very light. So how much you work with that fiber determines the price for the milling. So if you don't clean it and you don't take any of the guard hairs out and you don't do anything, that's just going to add to the price of it when they are processing it. Or if you're sending it out to like a friend to spin, that they might not want it that dirty. But you can put jackets on them. That's what some people do. I think that it's fine if it's dirty. Just pick out a few big pieces and it'll be great.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody else have questions?
I was actually kind of curious with dual registration with the Cashmere Association. Do you think in a bigger picture, would it be worth it to try and advocate to have San Clemente's be present in that registry and association? Like, do you think it'd be worth it to pursue that with them somehow? Like, as in a way to accept, like, would they be, I wonder if it'd be worth pursuing them as in, like, we will take San Clemente goats with their extra goodies if everything else is looking good on them. Maybe Paisley popped out.
So I talked about that, but if you want to put it in the chat, that would be great, like the end of your question. But as for dual registration, I think that there is some benefit to it. I think that, but it's also really like get out of it, right? So what I've done is that when I've gotten an SCI goat tested, I send that with them if I'm selling that goat, that data for their new owner in case that they have any interest in that. And I feel like that's just a bonus thing that they get with my goats. But I found a lot of promise with the crossbreeding. Obviously, with SCIs, we're not doing crossbreeding right like that. I only do male SCIs to female cashmeres because I don't want to waste a purebred SCI girl to make a random cashmere goat. So I found a lot of promise with that. It really depends. I feel like the market's so small that it's kind of more just personal use and an interesting thing that they are actually really good at cashmere goats on the side.
Awesome, thank you. You know, I kind of had a similar question to Christy, and when it might also expand on Christy's question for Erin, but when it's like one thing is to collect the cashmere for our own purposes, but another thing I wanted to tap on was like when you actually collect cashmere for testing, I had to shave like a little square out of each goat, and there were instructions on how you took the guard hair, you took that patch basically, and like, you know, did measurements and sent all of that in with some information. But one of the disgusting things that I found was that, you know, sometimes there's some lice in the mix that get put into that baggie. I was mildly this way. I was like, you know, they were dead. They were in the baggie. They suffocated. But is there, would you recommend something to kill off any external parasites before harvesting cashmere that wouldn't impact that cashmere quality?
No. I don't know. Is Paisley still here? I'm seeing her. I'm not hearing her. Anybody else hearing her?
She's muted right now.
Oh, okay.
I just sent her a message in the chat. Does anybody else have any thoughts about specifically the external parasite stuff? I mean, everybody has them, but I was like, oh, what kind of nasty pants sometimes too.
Yeah, I don't know if anything you use would affect fiber quality per se, or if it's just worth, you know, collecting, and then as part of the processing, when you wash and stuff, that's going to kill off anything, you know, you have. Unless you're seeing huge numbers, then of course you probably want to treat your goat anyway.
Right, exactly. Yeah, yep. Yeah, it's kind of that time of the season where like, yeah, where the external parasites like mites and stuff around here anyways, it's like when they're shedding is when you got to keep a hot eye out for all of the outside parasites, I guess.
Exactly. Let me see. Oh, I think we've lost Paisley again. Oh no. Well, I'm going to throw my questions out there just because I'm curious about. We have all these extra bucks a lot of times, or even older bucks, and so I'm curious. Maybe dust them. Oh, Lisa suggested dusting them with food grade DE. That's always a good one. That definitely I don't think would affect fiber content.
Yep.
As I said, I'm curious about if people want to sell extra bucks for cashmere, what kind of testing do they need to do to be able to market them? Like, I'm assuming you'd have to test fiber, but like, is a yearling really the best, or are you looking for older goats? And then also, would you need to also have testing for the dam and the sire, sort of just to show genetics as a potential there? That was what I was curious about.
I think.
Go ahead.
Oh, I think that's true, Sarah. I was trying to remember that discussion I had with it was Heidi and I forget the other woman's name from Clean Cashmere, but I was starting that discussion about tepper line breeding and noticing that tepper line seemed to have better quality cashmere than a lot of my other San Clemente's. So I do think that having that genetic representation of parents would be really good to see that there's that happening in that genetic line, I guess.
I would think you would almost have to test them, at the same age, and compare, sire at age 1, sire at age 2 to offspring at age 1, age 2, so on.
Yeah, but definitely, especially older sires and dams, because the quality gets, potentially better as they get older. Interesting food for thought. And my other question was, I know they do like wool contests at the wool shows or festivals, so I'm curious about whether they do cashmere fiber contests to, sort of grand champion fiber production, or I don't know. Those are my two questions. And hopefully I can send them to Paisley to ask, and we'll get answers for those. But
I think that's a true thing. There's like that big wool and fiber hootenanny that happens, or it travels. I know it's on the East Coast, but I think there is one that comes around Wisconsin. But I know I have a friend north of me that has cashmere goats, and she participates in those competitions and displays like her goat cashmere at those. So I think that's true.
I thought it might be interesting to add, like, for next year's annual meeting week, like a fiber testing or contest, or a milk testing contest for butterfat, or something like One Day Milker or something like that. Sort of more utility versus the fall, which is, more standard goat type show.
I think that's really something to chew on. Like, the Breeders Association has a lot going on right now, but I think that's definitely stuff on the back burner, because I was thinking about the dual registry. But if, again, it's a lot of stuff, and I'm not saying we need to do it now, but like, can we show the fiber testing with our pedigrees or registrations at some point down the line? I think it'd be really a cool thing. Or if people just did it on their own, to tack that on with each goat, and being able to show that, on the website at one point, to see that and share that would be really a fun thing for everybody. And that would also help make like purchasing choices too,
Exactly. It's just food for thought. It's always good to, throw stuff out there, keep ideas, a running list going. So when you have the time and the ability. Well, I'm going to go at, are there any more fiber-related content questions since we've lost Paisley?
I hope people do something with their fiber this year. Like, if they collect it, do something, make a little felted goat with it or something.
I need a market for Pyrenees fiber. That I've got. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Always. All right, I'm going to stop the recording.